Minus here from PantheonPlus and Hayah up above me there. Looks like it's just back to us today for our first DPS class. And today we are going to be talking about the Wizard. So Hayah, what's up? How you been? How's life?
Good.
Good. All right, so let's jump right into this. Some of our last videos have been a little longer, so we'll try to do you guys a favor and keep this one a little bit shorter. But, we're always going to rant and have some fun with it. So let's talk about the Wizard. Let's start where we normally do, which is with the races. Pretty good representation of the races. You have 5: Archai, Darkmere, Elf, Human, and Gnome. I don't see any issues with that selection. Do you at all?
None at all.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess the only one you could possibly make an argument for out of what's left is maybe a dwarf.
I would say halfling if I had to argue it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe a halfling. So, pretty interesting. I think you'll see a lot of gnomes and Archai in Darkmere and elves. Actually, probably a lot
all
of
them. Everyone.
All right, so when we look at the Wizard, everybody knows it is a magical DPS class. It is utility based. I think you see utility or support on almost every class. There's like little things they can do, right? So let's talk, before we jump into the spells, what's really cool about this class is that you have sort of different, they call them combat resources. I really don't like that name for them because the only real combat resource, in my opinion, is mana, right? So you're managing your mana. But the other pieces are like play style adaptations of how you'll play. So let's talk about the first one, and then we'll jump into the second one. And Hayah, chime in anytime you want right off the top of me here. So the first one is focus, and this is pretty cool. So you have 3, but we're going to call it 4 because it is going to be saying that here. But you're going to have a base of 3 schools of magic. And anybody familiar with the Wizard class in most games, it's a pretty standard set. So you have your fire, cold, and arcane. Most of the time it's fire, ice, and arcane. So pretty close to standard there. But what's neat about it is as you're casting these abilities, you're going to get buffs that change up your playstyle as you're casting. So I'm going to jump into those real quick here. Then we'll talk about that fourth one. So as you're casting fire, you're basically going to get a bonus damage to your fire, your bonus to crit, but your mana cost of casting is going to go up. So, and how this works is as you're casting, you're going to get stacks of it, right? So you'll get X stacks, and then it'll cap, and that'll be the most amount of stacks you can have. And if you continue to cast that, you'll just kind of refresh it, right? Keeping yourself at that max level. But as you can see with fire, that's going to take some of your mana. When we get into the cold spell version, what it's going to do is you're going to lower your hate, which is probably going to be absolutely huge for a wizard. And additionally, the damage of your cold spells actually decreases, which is really interesting. So that reads to me like you're going to really need to manage your threat because you're probably going to be doing the most damage in the game. That's my guess. And then you have arcane affinity. So as you're casting arcane, your magic spells will return X% of your mana when they land. Additionally, mana cost and damage of your spells will continuously decrease. So
this is very cool because you have like your burn phase in the flame and then your recovery phase in the arcane, and then you're lowering hate phase with the cold. It's kind of a neat kind of jump between stances to do different things during the same fight.
Yeah, it is actually a pretty cool way of doing it. You're gonna get your mana high, you're gonna blast it down with fire, and when you do too much damage, you're gonna start icing it down, which is kind of cool because think about it. So you're gonna you turn the fire on, right, and start just burning, and then you're gonna chill out, just chill, and then you're gonna use your arcane to get your head back together, get your mana back, and then just kind of rinse and repeat. So interesting playstyle, a little different. I like that you're playing all 3. A lot of games do specs.
Separate it. Yeah.
You do specs or you do talent trees and you specialize in one or the other, right? So in this game, you're actually going to be a master of all the elements, which is what you should be as a wizard. So you're going to have your full arsenal available to you, obviously depending on the 12 spells, which is kind of cool. So the last piece of that, and so this is the way they put it, we can read between the lines here, but the exact wording is, it is rumored that there will be a 4th school of magic discovered by certain wizards, devastating in effect and untethered to elemental constraints. So pretty neat. I think that ties into the perception system that we've heard a lot about. And for those that don't know or haven't read or seen like Nathan's different videos about discovery, The big thing here is that you will actually learn spells out in the world. And to have certain spell levels or spells at all, you're going to have to go sort of discover them by just roaming. And in this one, you're literally going to discover an entire
school of magic. That's badass.
Right? And I don't think we've seen anything like that in an MMO. Maybe ever. I mean, maybe pieces of it, but nothing that drastic.
Not on that scale that I can think of.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it really, I got to tell you, I mean, we're not even in spells yet. And that really makes this an exciting class. It's going to make it, I think, I've said this for a few classes, so I don't want people to think I just say this all the time, but I really feel like you can see this as a class that when somebody masters it, like almost like a master enchanter, a master wizard is just going to be a beast, but also probably driving a tank crazy.
Yep.
So
better have a good tank to go with your good wizard.
Yeah. So the other piece of that that's really cool, and it actually ties into what we were just talking about discovering your spells, spell weaving. Okay, so the long story short of spell weaving is that you will discover scroll fragments throughout the world. It's going to add abilities or pieces to your actual spells that change how they work. And these changes will allow essentially spell comboing. And spell comboing will allow you, if done correctly, and if you've discovered the spells, to have woven spells which cost no mana and are instant. So, I mean...
Right, because you needed more damage more quickly, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, oh my gosh. It's for a ranged DPS class, for a magic dealing class, they are really... Like, a lot of people have complained that there's not enough DPS classes, right? Because you have your support classes, you have your tanks, you have your healers. And, there's not a huge amount. There's more DPS than other classes, but there's not a huge amount of DPS classes. And people want a two-hander and stuff like that. This class feels like such a well done lore. This is what a wizard is, and like I said, we haven't even gotten to the spells yet. But I absolutely love the makeup of this class.
Definitely agree.
So armor cloth, nobody should have expected any different there. You'll be using one-handed piercing, one-handed blunt, staves, certain edged weapons, which is pretty cool, and certain shields. Yeah, I mean, I think it was WoW that had mages could use swords, so it's always a cool look as a spellcaster to carry like a really cool sword, so yeah, no problem with that. Okay, so let's talk into the featured abilities. Again, just jump in. Order of the Gatekeepers is an epic skill. Wizards have the opportunity to prove themselves worthy of joining the Order of the Gatewalkers, consisting of wizards who have mastered the power to travel through gateways that exist on Terminus. This prestigious order has maintained a steady watch over the gateways for years. So essentially, that's how you learn your ports. Yep, teleporting. I know you love teleporting. I know that's a big deal for you to have an ult that can teleport around. So it looks like you're going to learn them through the world, which is also pretty cool.
Which is a great way to do it.
Yeah, you're exploring. You all of a sudden you come up on a wizard. That wizard happens to be the keeper of that portal, and now you have something to figure out. Okay, so summon Arcane Familiar. When it arrives, it'll absorb mana from the environment, which is cool. It's a cool way of putting it. Equal to X% of your maximum mana. While your familiar is active, it will feed X% of the mana it holds to you every Y seconds. Additionally, you may dismiss it, instantly gaining some of the mana it holds. So it builds up mana, and it's just slowly coming to you, and then you can destroy it to just grab it all real quick.
That's a really cool way to implement a wizard pet. Like EQ had familiars for the that didn't work like that. You just had a thing that followed you around, and you got a little buff from it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's going to be a little wisp, like a little purple arcane wisp. That's what it reminds me of. So we have Summon Fire Familiar. It's an epic ability. It's not something that looks like you'll be able to do all the time. While active, it'll allow you to retain your Fury of Flame focus when casting other schools. That's really cool for a burn phase.
Absolutely.
Yep. Throw it out there, drop your mana really low, pump it back up with your arcane spells, and drop it again. So that's or even just weaving. If you get one of those spell weaves, you can weave in and out and keep your fire stacks. It's pretty cool. I also so two things here. Those are the two arcanes familiars. Fire and arcane. When I first started reading this page prior to the video, and I saw summon arcane. It's like, no, I don't want pets. I don't want pets. They're not pets.
Not really pets though.
No, not at all. And if someone looks at them and says, "Oh, this is a pet class," it is, to me, that's a physical being that represents a buff.
Yeah.
And so it just makes it look cool. Brand of Frost. Brand your enemy with frigid markings, lowering their resistance to cold. So makes sense. Same for fire, and same for arcane. So you have full control to lower resistances to your own spells. Flash. You disappear in a flash, and so you got your blink.
Yep. Punt forward quickly.
Yep. Sight of the sages. Your normal vision grows cloudy, but within the mist, you're able to see invisible beings. So that's interesting.
Neat.
So yeah, so the screen probably gets blurry. It's not great for regular vision, but if anything's invisible, it like stands out Predator style. I'm probably making that up. It's probably not going to be red, but
yeah, it's not infrared vision, I'm sure.
Shelter of energies. You encircle yourself with resilient energy, increasing your maximum health and your armor class. So little self buff. So pretty cool. So that's your featured ability. So now we're going to jump into each of the schools. So you can see, if you look at this really quickly, fire is definitely the bulky school, which you're going to spend most of your time in, and you're going to use the others as self-support. So fire abilities: smolder, direct fire damage; char. So as you can see here, this is a woven spell, requires a char fragment. So woven from smolder to inflict increased fire damage to your target with X% bonus to critically land. So it makes, again, smolder a little bit stronger. So we have engulf, which is another. It's woven to char. So pretty cool, right? So
I'm seeing the combo thing that was in was it Bless Online that had a combo system?
You gotta be careful saying that. We may lose followers instantaneously if we
say. So sorry. The game that will not be named had a system.
Yeah, and it had lines and trees, right? And that's, and I joked when I said that. Just it's like the coolest. If you ranked like the coolest things to hate, it'd be like, wow,
it's right up there.
Fallout 76, Bless. Probably be the 1, 2, 3.
I like the combat system, so
it wasn't bad. So but yeah, so this one's gonna tie on to char. So you have to learn char, right? And once you have it, you can then fragment that. So that's pretty cool. So smolder does this, does that. So engulf woven into the char to inflict additional fire damage to your target, and it's guaranteed crit. Additionally, engulf inflicts higher fire damage for a brief amount of time.
Also, nuke and a dot. Very cool.
So pretty cool. Radiate heat. Surround yourself with fiery mana for X duration, inflicting fire damage to all enemies that strike you. So a nice little damage shield only on yourself, which is pretty interesting, I guess. I mean, does that really? I mean, what kind of use is that going to have?
If you're kiting and you take a hit or two here and there, it's a little added damage. Just next to having none if you don't.
I can't imagine a wizard's going to be a class that can take many hits. So how much damage are you really going to reflect? Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong there. Fiery Surge. You release a wave of fiery mana all around you. So AoE fire. Evoke Fire. Sudden Blast of fiery mana. The force of this ability will knock your target down if they're weakened. So nice little combo ability there. Ember Arrow. You impale your enemy with a bolt of blurring mana, increasing high fire damage. Dealing high fire damage and causing them to burn. So high direct damage and a dot. So fire is definitely, hit them hard.
Your big damage, your big bada boom.
Yeah, and then also just like leaving effects on them. So they're kind of ticking with dots. They're on fire, so to speak. Yes, fiery winds. So you summon a tempest of fire.
Kruvenoth.
Yeah. That's like one of those bug things when they talk with like no vowels. Except there's a vowel. You summon a tempest of fire-filled wind and direct it where to go. So it'd probably be like a placed spell and just right from you. It does all enemy fire damage to all enemies in the target path, which is pretty cool. Fiery Gale. Wizards may evoke fiery winds into Fiery Gale, so it's an improvement spell. Probably like maybe cost more mana, or it procs. Dramatically increasing the fire damage inflicted on enemies. In addition, while the tempest reaches its final location, it'll dissipate into a violent explosion. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, when it gets there, it goes AoE. That's pretty badass.
So it's kind of probably do that passing damage to a lot of them, but then just explode right in that group as long as you're positioned well. Pretty interesting to see so much AoE when, again, I don't know how many times you'll be fighting a lot of mobs. Torch the Glacier, a channel spell that deals. I was like, how many of these did I had? Deals fire damage to your enemy over X seconds. Any movement will cancel the ability. So it's channeled.
Yeah.
So beam fire. Deals increased damage to enemies based on their cold resistance. Huh. That's interesting.
They flipped it on you there a little bit, eh?
Yeah. Tricky. Inferno Lance, charged ability. You launch a spear of molten mana at your enemy, followed by a burning shockwave that damages all enemies in front of you up to X meters away. The longer you charge the ability before releasing, the more mana it will cost, the more damage it will deal. That's pretty cool. I like that charge ability thing. It's a little bit of control over how much you want to spend and how big a boom you're going to make.
I like how a lot of these abilities aren't just like you press 1 for your big damage, and while it's on cooldown, you press 2 for your not so big damage. There's different reasons to use these different abilities.
Yep. Fire Flash, you perform a sphere of dense fiery mana. Where the sphere is formed, your flash toward your enemy and release the blast with incredible velocity. So is that a blink in, explode, and come back? Am I reading that right?
Yeah. It
doesn't come back. It just pushes everything back.
Yeah, so you push yourself into them and push them back.
That's pretty cool. It reminds me of the Diablo ability, the wave.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So before we jump into code, what do you have to add for the fire? I mean, what are you thinking? Do you like the setup?
Big bada boom. Yeah, it's pretty
multi-pass. Yeah, I do like it. There's probably going to be... I can see people now saying, well, what if we want to be a frost mage? We can't.
That's not how it works. You do all 3.
Fire does damage. Ice is going to do what it does, and Arcane's going to do what it does. So you're just going to have to accept that. That's how they made that. You get to control all of them at once. Enjoy that.
They'll all do damage, but fire is your mainstay, like your bread and butter.
Yeah. So at least as of this, not a lot of cold abilities here, guys. Remember, not all the abilities may be released. This might be a massive update. Some of these may be gone. But Glint. So evoke shards of frozen mana at your enemy, dealing direct cold damage and slowing their movement speed. So there's your kiting ability. Frozen Fortress. You encase yourself in solid ice. Forming a barrier between you and your enemies. Enemies that try to harm you will begin attacking the frozen fortress and attempt to break it open. So while inside, you're unable to move, immune to all damage. The effect will end after X or you don't have damage. So, ice block. Shatter the ice. You concentrate your energy into an abrupt explosion of power, shattering the frozen fortress, so you can actually detonate it. That's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yep. Damaging all enemies within X meters of you. Affected enemies will be rooted in place and only usable when it's active. So yeah, what's cool about that is, let's say you do pull that mob, you pop it, the tank jumps in and grabs it back, and then you can explode to deal damage and jump right back in. A lot of times in WoW with Ice Block, you were canceling so that you could continue to do damage and didn't waste time just being frozen. Now it's actually not just canceling, but it's
you get a utility out of it as well.
That's pretty cool. And then the last one here, Icy Blade. You launch a razor sharp blade at icy mana at your enemy, dealing cold damage to all enemies on its path. The more enemies in this ability, basically in the range of the ability, the greater chance it'll critically hit upon impact. So I guess it'll hit that last enemy, and if it's hit a bunch, it'll crit. So not a whole lot there for cold, but remember these also are going to passively reduce your hate. And that's not worded here. You got to remember you get that stacking buff. And then we jump into the arcane abilities here. So we have Prism Burst. You bombard your enemy with a prism of crystallized mana that explodes on impact. So direct magic damage your enemy and damaging all enemies. So just boom, hit them. Kind of reminds me of the arcane orb in Diablo.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it hit and explode. Fractal Jolt, a quick jolt of arcane energy that stuns your enemy briefly, interrupting their spell casting. So stun and interrupt. I wonder if the interrupt, and this is something we'll even talking about silly because we'll never know, but I hate that like a lot of bosses can't be stunned. I wonder if the interrupt will still work.
I wonder how much emphasis is going to be on the importance of interrupting stuff like it was in later WoW expansion.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Make or break a group based on if you can interrupt or not.
Yes. Or, since every DPS in WoW had an interrupt, it wasn't so much about the class, it was just about the person knowing they had that button. In this game, you only have 12. What are the chances the DPS are like, oh, I didn't keep my silence kick or interrupt.
Yeah,
sorry, I had
point.
this extra DPS ability. Blast of Lightning. You send a bolt of electrified mana to your target, dealing magic damage, increasing their spellcasting speed. Or decreasing this. Okay. I was like, that doesn't make sense. Decrease, so on the casters, you actually slow them down. That's a built-in slow. It's pretty cool. Lightning Volley. You form a storm of mana between your hands, causing damage and a certain amount of lightning bolts to arc forward. If you have an enemy targeted, all the lightning bolts will strike your target, dealing several rounds of magical damage. If you do not have a target, it'll randomly strike X.
I really like that. I don't know why.
Super cool.
It's a simple thing, but that's really.
I can't wait to see that animation, just to be like, lightning flying off of you. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And magical bonds. You form cords of dense energy around your enemy's feet, slowing their movement speed by X% for wide duration. So that's cool. So you have a slow in your cold and your arcane abilities. So that'll probably be pretty helpful when you're pulling aggro.
Very much.
So that's your wizard class. Some really cool base mechanics. I would say that overall their spell set has some neat class lore feel to it, and the way that they're explaining how the spells go off will be really interesting to see the animations with the definition. But I would say that, and I'm not knocking this class. I really like it. I know it's the first DPS class we're covering, so I'm not going to go crazy right now. But I really like, and I scrolled back up here because this class to me is this. It's what's on the page, which you guys can see here. It's focus and spell weaving. You have a class that gets to control all the elements, and you get focus and you get spell weaving. And while the spells are what you would consider them to be, there's nothing that you see there. You're like, oh, that's new and really cool. It's a wizard. What do you want, right? So I think what's cool and what this game has done is just the basic play style is what's cooler than the actual spells you're casting, and I really like that.
I don't think I could say that any better myself. The small interactions and the flavor of each spell really makes a nice defined picture of this magical, this big, gargantuan magic user who just you can't stand up to.
Yeah, and our next video is probably gonna be Summoner. We're gonna do all the DPS before we do a comparison video. So this one will compare all the DPS. We're gonna start with ranged, and what I'm interested in talking about you with is, I really hope that this is the magic damage dealer, and that Summoner is a little bit more utility and a little bit more through pets, and that'll make me happy because they'll fit different roles. I like the wizard where it's at. If you want to be a spell damage machine, there it is. There's your class. And again, looking at how it's built, if you're a smart player, right? If you are playing well and understand the variation of your class, what 12 spells you pick, right? So this class is going to be, loadouts for the wizard are going to be super important, right? Where do you take more hate reduction? Where do you take more mana gain? Where do you take all damage? That's going to be very interesting for this class when you really boil down to how you want to play. And it could create a few different play styles. You could have that wizard that just burns the hell out of something, and you could have that wizard that's more sustained. It's that burn phase where we need to kill this before it kills us, or do you have just a really sustained, nice, constant damage?
Or if you have a static group and you know your tank really well and know he can handle it, don't need those hate reduction spells as much.
Yeah, and there's like the cleric. I know I'm going to mix up, but was it the cleric that could cast a spell on someone and reduce their hate? Right?
Perhaps, yeah.
I think it was the cleric. It could have been someone else. Sorry for not remembering, but there's multiple classes that can kind of control the hate meters as well, and lower someone's or reset the mob's hate. So imagine a wizard just blows it up. You reset the hate on the mob, the warrior picks back up, the paladin, whatever it is. So really, really cool class design. I'm pretty into it, and as someone who played a wizard in original EQ. That was my main for.
Right.
Yeah, that was my first 50. Was that the first max? Was 50, yeah. Right? Yeah. So my first 50 at a max level was a wizard, and teleporting around, making money, because I never make money in these games. So making money, teleporting, and what was it called?
Ice Comet.
Ice Comet was so badass. Gravity Flux was awesome. Throw shit in the air. Didn't even do that much damage, but it was super cool.
It was cool until an NPC casted it on your group and you ended up in different ends of the zone.
Yeah, that wasn't as cool. But so yeah, this looks really cool. For me, it could definitely be a class I'd consider. Like I said, see the rest of the DPS here would be pretty cool. Now, we've hit about 25 minutes, which is usually about where these videos end. Hayah, before I jump into something I want to talk about real quick with you that I think is going to pertain to this class, put a couple more minutes on the video. Do you have anything you want to say just wrapping up this class at all?
Oh, magic casters aren't usually my niche, but this is a really cool looking class. It's very well built, stands on. I think people could have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. And you know what you're doing. You have a defined role.
Exactly.
So the reason I say that, you know what you're doing, you have a defined role. So in the newsletter, there was a really interesting comment made. And I wanted to bring it up because I think it pertains to this class and it pertains to healers, which we've already covered. And I think the rest of the classes we're going to cover won't be heavily affected by this. So I think it's a good time to kind of just throw this in at the end. And Nathan just recently did a video on this about downtime. So they were asking Brad about the downtime debate. And you know that I want to have a full fleshed out downtime debate, a video that we're going to put out eventually, because I think me and you share a lot of opinions on that. So I'm not going to get into all of that, but I want to get into one specific thing, and we've talked about it with this class, so that's why I think it makes sense. So Brad said, listen, we're testing meting in combat. Some people don't like that. It's like there will be situations where you probably will be able to do it, where the wizard runs into a corner, hides, and sits so that they don't get sit aggro. But sit aggro is going to be very brutal. So everyone's all worried about downtime in between fights, downtime during a fight, having to sit a lot, not being able to play. And Brad said something that was really important. I don't know if you picked up on this, but he said that if you have the group makeup and you have different classes and you know what your role is, you probably won't have much downtime, especially in combat, right? If you have an enchanter who is spreading mana to the group, right? If you are a healer, know your role. And a lot of people aren't going to like this. Everybody wants to do everything. If you're a healer and you're a cleric,
all the time too. Everything all the time.
Yeah. If you're a cleric, heal. That's all we need you to do, right? Like when you don't need to heal, conserve your mana. Conserve your mana, sit back, watch, be aware. And for this wizard, you're going to have to really play well. You're going to have to know when to get your mana back, because if you're not a good wizard, because essentially the way it boiled down is, the way I read that comment was, if you play your class with skill, you're going to be rewarded with having less downtime. And I love it. I love it.
Do I, as a wizard, do I blow my wad right now and then med for the next 3 pulls? Or do I space it out? Do a little damage here, do a little damage there. And, it works out better that way.
And the people who want the DPS meters and just I want to be top DPS, let your group do its things, right? So let the healer heal. Let the tank. Let the damage dealers deal their damage. It's not about who's doing more. If the mob dies, we all win, right? If it drops loot and we're farming a boss, we all win. And if you want to sit there and be Captain Hero, now we're waiting on you. And I think the wizard's the perfect class for that, because a good wizard is going to be rewarded with less downtime, more consistent damage, probably higher damage. And I love that. And I think that's why I wanted to bring that topic up, because this to me is the class outside of healers for that. Probably Absolutely. Enchanters. So, all right, guys. So that's everything from us. First of all, I want to give a big shout out. Thank everybody. We hit over 200 Twitter followers this last week. You guys are incredible. I mean, we started this 2 months ago and we had nothing, and we're like, why do people care? And you guys have been super awesome. We have a great community, the PantheonPlus community, not just the content creators, but all the fans that have helped us out, the people who have supported us, watched us, the people who have critiqued us and given us good feedback that's helped us get better. Keep it up, man. We love it. It's really helping us out. So thank you guys for the Twitter followers. It's also helping us get out content creators as well, not just us. And thank you for all the follows so far. Subscriptions on YouTube. This week we're about to hit 500, I hope. We're pretty close. So you guys have made that real for us. Going from 0 to 500 in 2 months has been awesome. I've said it 100 times, I'll say it again. We will not waste that. There's 100 people you guys could subscribe to out there, and I know you guys don't want a full feed of just millions of videos coming up on your subscription. So we really appreciate that. We will not waste that. We'll use that to drive the community, to drive other content creators. So thank you very much for that. And if you haven't yet, we're collecting a little bit of data. We're going to probably do an overall class video where we use some data from a poll we put up on PantheonPlus. So if you haven't voted on what class you're most interested in, please do. I snuck Bard in there. Also, if you didn't see the prior video, we did it already for races, so we'll bring that up as well when we kind of do a full recap. So next week, check out us for the Summoner, and then we'll be done with the Spellcasters. We'll probably throw a Ranger in the middle because it's both, and then we'll jump into the Melee, and then we'll wrap it up. So thanks, everybody. Awesome. Give us feedback, comment on the video, let us know what you think about Wizard. Super hyped on it. Thanks.